Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre Simon, and it's great being back with you as we continue in our series of Unmasking Addiction. I've split off relapse and prevention from the series. I had it together with recovery and relapse prevention. Recovery is just so much. There were so many parts to recovery. I thought, I need to split that off. So I split it off into a number 6 essential area. Relapse prevention. So this is part 1 of relapse prevention today. I tell you what, when I get clients coming in with addiction issues, whether it's behavioral addictions or chemical addictions, any kind of addictions, it's work, not my work. It's work for them. And recovery is all-encompassing work that they can do if it's in their heart to want to do it. And all we can do is give them the tools. And that goes for you if you're a friend or a family member. Maybe you're a parent or a brother or sister. Give them the tools. And that's what we're talking about when we're discussing recovery and now into relapse prevention. We're talking about giving the tools. It's up to them to use them. It's up to them to take part in those tools, to first accept it and then use those tools that are given to them. It's not your fault if they relapse. It's not because you didn't do something right. And they're going to blame you. They always blame everyone else, but it's not you. And maybe you did something wrong, but still, it's not you. It's their choice. But don't give up on them or don't criticize. Sometimes you have to say, you know, we need to pause. You're just continuing. You're not following what needs to be done and so on. And it's just you're not ready yet. When you're ready, come back and talk to me some more. Now you're leaving the door open, and they'll come back and talk some more. And sometimes I have to do that with clients who aren't taking it seriously, addiction clients who may not be taking it seriously, and they either are relapsing or I can see they're going to, and they're not taking the tools and using them. You know, we need to take a pause. Maybe contact me later when you feel you're more ready to work on these things, and I'll be around. Yeah, and they do. Yeah, some do, some don't. But the ones who are ready, where it's in their hearts, or they hit another bottom, and hopefully the next one is the last one. They'll reach out for help, and you want to be there available for them. So relapse prevention, not letting the past steal your present. That's what happens. That past history wants to come back up. It's like the Bible says about the devil. You know, he's just there to steal, kill, and destroy. He keeps resurfacing or bringing things back to the attention to get you back down into that bondage again. Well, addiction is like that. It keeps resurfacing. It wants to bring you back down. And as we've said before, that addictive personality that forms within the person in the basement of the brain, as we've discussed, the top half, bottom half, the upper room, I call it, the top half of the brain where all your good stuff's located, bottom half, the basement of the brain where your fight or flight freeze center is located. That addictive personality is down there hiding in the basement in the darkness, and it keeps wanting to come up, and we have to keep that door closed to the basement, not letting it step out, not letting it drag us back down into it. That's up to you. That's up to that person that has an issue. Offer the help to close that door, that basement door. Offer the tools available. It's essential to focus on the present and not allow past failures to hinder progress toward recovery. experts in addictions pretty much say the same thing. It takes courage. And so they'll acknowledge that people often seek treatment to prevent relapse due to their prior unsuccessful efforts to overcome their addictive behaviors or substance abuse. Basically, that's saying most people who go into treatment have been in treatment before, or they've been in recovery before, or they have attempted to stop their addictive issues before, and they were unsuccessful at it, and now they're going back into the process of healing. Most people going into treatment programs are that way. It's going to be less than half. I don't know the exact figures. Less than half. I'm going to say about 40%, maybe even less than that, are first time going in. Most of them have have attempted to stop before. Remember, we had discussed how the statistics show that the average person working on their addictions will hit their bottom and stop 9 times before they hit that final bottom and don't turn back to it. So that's an average, nine times of relapsing. It just tells you how difficult it is. It's not an easy thing. And if you've never had that issue, well, you kind of think, well, why can't you be like me and just say, just not do that, and you get impatient with them and you yell at them or whatever. Well, that's not helping. But we tend to think everybody ought to be just like us, right? If I don't have a need, why should you have a need? Or if I don't have a weakness, why should you have that weakness? You ought to be strong like me, Well, I guarantee you got weaknesses too, maybe not the same one, but everybody has growth areas, and we'll be talking a little bit about that. Relapse is an essential aspect of addiction and presents itself in basically 2 ways. Firstly, there's the addictive behaviors and chemical dependence signs that manifest during periods of active use. And secondly, symptoms occur during abstinence, which creates a tendency toward relapse and becomes an integral part of the illness. So in our next video, we're going to get into relapse signs and symptoms, those warning signs to look for, and what are the symptoms there. And we'll be looking at them in more detail form. This is the groundwork that we're doing today on relapse and recovery. Recovery is we could call it something that is progressive. I don't like that word because they've kind of hijacked that word, but it's still accurate. It is a gradual thing of doing better, of healing. Healing most of the time isn't instantaneous, it's gradual. And in the gradual healing, then there's new things happening that are making you better. So recovery is very similar. Recovery is a progression of personal development with specific milestones. Each step of recovery carries a risk of relapse. So if you think, let's just use the 12-step as an example, each step along the way carries a risk of someone relapsing in that step. So it doesn't mean that relapse only going to happen when you're at the end and you're all over with, no, or only at the beginning. It could be at any step along the way. If there's a sign or symptom, you can reduce that risk, and that's why we'll get into more details on that next time. We want to catch it early. If there's going to be a relapse along there, what do we look for, and how do we catch it early? Most of the time, relapse occurs gradually. It's not, as I said earlier, a quick thing. It's allowing you to break it down into distinct phases helps you to be able to, okay, I'm here, I need to watch out for this, this, and that, and I'm there, I need to watch out for this, this, and that. Treatment for relapse prevention aims to aid individuals in identifying the initial stages of deterioration when the probability of success is higher. And there's 5 primary goals of relapse prevention that was identified back in 1986 by Gorski. He was very accurate, and we still use these 5 primary goals today. And the first is, and as I'm saying this, I'm not just talking to treatment providers, counselors. I'm talking to you also, the mother, the father, the husband, the wife, the brother or sister, the teacher. These are things that you can do in being aware, and steps that can be taken if there's someone close to you that you're trying to help who's not in a treatment program. And certainly in treatment programs, they're going to use these goals, these primary goals, but you can use them at home too. Assess the global lifestyle patterns contributing to the relapse by completing a comprehensive self-assessment of life, addiction, and relapse history. So basically, get the history of this person, find out what's happened in the past. And if this is a family member, you already know what that history is, but maybe you don't fully know. So you need to ask more questions. You need to get more details, more information to get a better picture. It's sort of like looking at, those puzzles, those picture puzzles that you put together, 1,000 pieces, and oh my gosh, I'm going to put that together. And what do they always say? Look at the corners, do the corners first, do the edges first, and work in. And my wife used to love that. She had a genius IQ, so she could take 1,000 of those things and just, do it. And oh my gosh, I kind of, oh no, I don't even want to try that. Well, get more information. So if it's someone you don't have all that information. I guarantee you they have secrets. I guarantee you they're keeping stuff to protect themselves, to protect from being embarrassed, to protect their addiction, and to protect whatever else. They're keeping secrets. You're not going to know everything. Even when they come into counseling, I take what they say. Well, all right, yeah. But I know they're keeping secrets. I know they're not telling me everything. And it would certainly help, and the counseling would go faster and be more thorough, and there would be less chance of relapse and so on. But that's what people are. That's what people do, and especially in addictions. That's what they do, because an addiction is a secret. It's something that is not right. You know you're not supposed to have this problem. You just know it. You don't even have to be told. People who never knew the difference still know something's wrong, something's not right. And so they're protecting themselves, and that's that basement of the brain that we've talked about, where fear and apprehension is located, and self-protection, selfishness is down there. Protecting self. So we need more information, and that's why that initial assessment is so important, and we emphasize that. I used to be an instructor for certified addictions professionals, and we would emphasize that so much for their treatment program centers that they would work at, or if they were doing individual counseling. Hey, if you don't have that full range of information, but they don't want to answer that, or I'll send out my new client forms. And I remember when I first started, new client form was just 1 page, and then it went to 2 pages, and then as I learned more, went to 3 pages. Now the new client forms it's up there, and I'll get clients, well, they're not filling them out, And I found over the years, the ones who don't fill them out are keeping the most secrets. They're afraid. And then you have the other group, usually those who aren't filling them out are ADHD or bipolar. And they all fall into those categories. And so right away, it's giving me information about them, whether they fill it out or not. I'm gaining information through that. So you need to gain more information. Whatever they're telling you, it's only, the surface. There's more. But take what you get and work on it until you can get more information, whether it's the first time you're talking to someone or the 20th time you're talking to someone. You're still gathering information that's coming from that past. The second primary goal is construct a personalized list of relapse warning signs that lead the relapser from stable recovery back to chemical use. So what are those personal weaknesses, personal warning signs? Everybody's different. Somebody, it may be they can't sleep at night. For another person, they sleep fine, but it may be they're getting headaches a little more often. Or another person, it may be they're just feeling more irritable through the day. Everyone's a little different. What are those warning signs for that particular person? And write it down. Make a list. It's not just one, it's going to be more. So make a list. Make a list because you're not going to remember them 6 months down the line or a year later. But if you have the list, you see something doesn't feel right, you can go to your list and look and say, oh, okay, hey, you know what? There's a pattern. Let's address this now. The third primary goal is develop warning sign management strategies for the critical warning signs. Don't wait till the last minute. If you wait till the last minute, it's too late. Develop a strategy ahead of time for something that might be more critical, like they've had one drink and they haven't had a drink in 6 months or a year. Well, that could be a critical warning sign. Let's address it quickly. Let's do something about it. Or they go out and they buy the lottery ticket when they have a gambling addiction. Well, okay, that's critical. Especially if they do 2 or 3. Now, what are we going to do about it? Don't wait till the last minute. Have that plan ahead of time. The fourth goal is develop a structured recovery program that'll allow clients to identify and manage the critical warning signs as they occur. Now, it's not just for a treatment program. When I say develop this, it's for you at home too. Write it down again. Put it in your computer. I'm old. I keep saying write it down. Put it in your computer. And you've got it there, and then you know, okay, this is what we need to do, structured recovery. We spoke last time how the importance of structure in recovery and how your good treatment programs are all going to have a structure from the minute they get up in the morning to the minute they go to sleep at night. There's a structure. Every hour of the day something is planned. The worst thing is not to have a plan, to have a gap in there. Whenever there's free time, that's the worst time for an addict. And of course you want free time too, because that's time when they can, kind of get themselves together. So you want to teach them that, so the treatment programs will have that free time in there so that they can, we could say, center themselves, kind of, okay, gel and put things together that's happened today or yesterday or last night that you haven't spoken about yet. Kind of put it together. You need that free time. But too much of it for an addict or someone in recovery, it's not a good thing. I'm still grieving. My wife passed almost 2 years. She's in heaven now, 50 years of marriage. I'll still choke up talking about it. But if I have too much free time because I'm grieving, that's not good. Yeah, I need that free time, but too much, no. I need structure. So I have to have my plan for the day and do my things, get up at a certain time, because if there's reminders and I'm just sitting and dwelling and I don't have a goal, a task, a purpose for that hour or so, what am I going to do? I'm going to tear up. I'm going to think too much about it. And it's okay. I tell people it's okay, tear up tonight between 7 and 7:30 or whatever time so you can get your work done during the day. So say, okay, tonight I'm going to think about this or that. Then, okay, in that half hour it's done, it's over. I've got to move on now to my next thing of whatever it is I need to do. And I can do it again tomorrow night. I can cry again tomorrow night or whatever. That's what we need to do. Whether it's grief, whether it's something else, depression or anything else, we need structure. So put that structure in place ahead of time if you're dealing with someone in establishing some goals. Number 5, develop a relapse recovery early intervention plan. So basically, to put it simply, okay, so they've relapsed, they're full-blown relapse, what do we do? I don't know. Let's call so-and-so. What do they think? I'm not sure what to do. You know, the longer you delay, the harder it's going to be, the worse it gets. You don't want to delay. If there's been a relapse, action. Got to take action quickly. So you got that on the list. What are we going to do if this should happen? Now, you do it ahead of time. And you do this with that person that you're working with, family, friend, doesn't matter. Hey, what do you think we should do if that should happen? You know, that unknown thing, you know, that we know is not going to happen, but just in case it does happen, what do you think what would you like us to do? And they'll tell you, many of them will tell you. Sometimes they'll just say, I don't know. Okay, well then you have to come up with that immediate plan of what to do. Sometimes it might be you already have a treatment center that you know to call in, or a place they can go to detox quickly. Whatever it might be, get them there or get the action done quickly, because that's the best time. They're in panic, they're afraid, some of them are in shock. It's the best time to guide them to the help that they need. As soon as that settles, they get stronger in their addictive personality is now getting stronger in hanging on to them, clinging to them, making them do what the addictive personality wants them to do. And from that point on, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me, you know, leave me alone. So have these plans ahead of time if you're dealing with someone with these issues. There's a term, biopsychosocial. In relapse prevention, to achieve a healthy, balanced state of recovery, the process involves addressing not one thing, but several things. First, the biological part, the medical part of the individual, then the psychological part, and then the social aspects of individual experiencing addictions. Biopsychosocial. It's addressing the person as a whole, not just one part of the person. And sometimes the tendency is to focus on the one part. Let's say they have major depression. They have a history of that. And you can focus on that one part, but you're not focusing on these other parts. And before you know it, I mean, they're just continuing because the whole thing isn't getting dealt with. The whole thing isn't being addressed. So these elements consider 3 primary psychological domains and 3 primary social domains. The psychological domains is thinking, feeling, and doing. In previous episodes, we've spoken of the think, feel, do cycle. There's an event, it's 12 o'clock, there's an event. 3 o'clock, we're thinking about that event. And that thinking doesn't necessarily have to be conscious. It can be an unconscious thought. The mind goes down to the basement. Is this a threat? You know, is this something that reminds us of a threat? Did we read about this that could be a threat? Or it goes back into the storage of different places of bits of memory. Is there anything that resembles that we've experienced before? Basically, you're the sum of your experiences. So, well, immediately the brain goes back and it's thinking about that event. Some people think the emotions come first. That's not true. The thinking comes first. And so you think about it, now the emotions kick in as a response to the thinking, and then the doing or the behavior follows the think, feel, do, and that tends to cause the next event, the 12 o'clock event, to occur either positive or negative. If it's a positive think, feel, do cycle, the next event is likely to be positive or more positive than the previous, hopefully. But if it's a negative think, feel, do cycle, it contributes to the next event being a negative event. And that, as we've said, is progressive, meaning the negative events, the negative think, feel, do cycle intensifies the negative following negative events that will occur. The social domains are, what do you think the three main social domains might be? You know, for you, it might be work, it might be friends, and it might be close relationships. You know, husband, wife, parent, child, you know, intimate relationships. So there's work or school, there's, and that's social. There's acquaintances, you know, superficial friends. I break that down from acquaintances to close personal relationships. So because we relate differently to close personal relationships than just acquaintances. And so close personal relationships, acquaintances, and work are the three primary social domains that are involved. And it's a balancing act to balance all of that together, to work on all of that in addressing it. So the goal is to reinforce skills in overdeveloped areas, domains as we call it, while building up those weaknesses and creating a functioning balance. I might not say weaknesses. I usually call them growth areas. The weaknesses tends to come out, but address them as growth areas. Here's a growth area. Here's an area you can grow in. You know, that's positive. Think of it that way. Don't just say, oh, you know, it's weakness. Oh, I eat too much. I'm weak. No, there's a growth area there that you can work on that, and you can address it, and you can get stronger. Your willpower can get stronger in that, or you know, I'm weak over, you know, gambling or drinking or whatever it might be. You know, oh, you know, there's a growth area we can work on. Let's work on that. Let's fix it. You know, it gives a little more positive motivation there, and that's biblical, isn't it? A healthy brain strengthens relapse prevention. Behaviors that are addictive stimulate reward systems in a way similar to the stimulation caused by drug abuse. And if you think about that, when you're doing something repeatedly that's enjoyable or initially enjoyable, there's a feel-good there, isn't it? And that feel-good there's a reward that's occurring. The dopamine in the brain, the norepinephrine, the stimulation, the epinephrine, all those happy chemicals are firing. And for normal people, for balance, where there's balance, they're firing in a balanced way. But with overstimulation, feeling too good, then first anticipation occurs. That I'm gonna go buy that ticket, that lottery ticket, or I'm gonna have that drink, or I'm gonna this or that. Anticipation works up those chemicals, stimulating those chemicals ahead of time. And then completion is, look, I won big, or, oh, look, I got this, or, oh, that was so good. It's not just completion. Anticipation gets fired up so much that even if there isn't completion, there's still a reward that has occurred in anticipating whatever it is. And then, of course, they seek after more. That's behavioral addiction. It's very similar to the chemical addiction. It's no different. The chemical addiction intensifies, and it goes directly to those chemicals. So these behaviors also produce some behavioral symptoms similar to those observed in people suffering from substance use disorders. Well, what happens? You forfeit your potential. Prolonged use, you're giving up who you are. You're giving up the rest of your life. You're giving up your potential. Prolonged use of these behaviors or substances can cause brain dysfunction, resulting in disorganized personality. So in psychology, they might call that a personality disorder, and to certain degrees, and difficulties in social and occupational settings. In other words, it's not going to make you the full and complete person that you once were or that you want to be. You're looking for peace. The saying, looking for love in all the wrong places. Well, they're looking for peace in all the wrong places. We want to look for peace in the right places. Complete recovery requires eliminating addictive behaviors or substance use and significantly changing one's personality and way of life. Changing personality, changing way of life. It's not going to work if you don't do that. You have to do those things. And that's the process that begins recovery and maintains recovery through relapse prevention. And what happens? Well, if the disorganized mind, if the mind has been damaged enough, then there's this opposite that tends to occur. It's like, I hate you, don't leave me. That's a description of borderline personalities, and a lot of addicts are in the midst of borderline personality or narcissistic personality or antisocial personalities. It's damaged up there. It needs healing. It needs growth. We've got to grow those areas that have been inhibited by the addiction. Individuals who grow up in troubled families. So it could be a little kid starting this. Growing up in a troubled family may develop self-sabotaging behavior patterns, like the borderline personality or some of the characteristics in other personalities, where they self-destruct. They're getting their hug and all that, but then they're pushing them away. And that starts as early as 2 years old, 2 to 4 years old. It's that early. If you start to see problems at between 2 and 4, if it's consistent, that's not a good sign, and that needs to be addressed early. It refers to what forms what we might call in AA character defects. Those self-sabotaging behavior patterns, character defects, hinder the ability to overcome addiction. If someone has a character defect, you can bet they're going to have a history of relapses. Doesn't mean they can't recover. It just means they're going to have to work a little harder at it. They're going to need more encouragement, more support. They're going to need more tools. But they're also going to need a greater desire to work on those things, to change personality, to change the way of life. Because addiction is a chronic illness, relapse is a common occurrence. Recovery is about progression, not perfection. As the addiction progresses, the symptoms of this brain dysfunction that occurs can affect thinking abilities, emotional management, memory, sleep, stress management, and other things as well, like coordination, physical coordination, get clumsier, as they go. When you look at the SPECT scan of the brain, or the CAT scan, or the PET scan of the brain, the MRI, you see parts, you see the brain not working totally. And you see where even parts of the brain have just shrunk, and coordination, discoordination occurs. The symptoms can be most severe during the first 6 to 18 months of sobriety. So it doesn't just happen, those symptoms they just don't end 10 days after you start recovery. They just don't end 2 weeks. It can go as long as 6 to 18 months, and certain types of drug use, it can be even longer. And their recurrence may occur during physical or psychosocial stress in the long run. So as stress builds, that's the warning sign that we'll be one of the warning signs we'll be talking about in the next episode. As you notice stress is building, okay, we got to take some precautions here. We got to work more on some of these other things to help balance this out some more, and pull back here and so on, to get that balance back. And the reverse becomes true. Addiction recovery progresses. So as drug use, addiction progresses, making things worse, recovery progresses, making things better. It just doesn't happen all at once. You fall 7 times, get up on the 8th time. Our temperament and personality become a habitual way of thinking, feeling, doing, and relating to others, nurtured by genetics, interactions with family, and environment. Regroup, recharge, refocus, refine. However, self-defeating personality traits and disorders can exacerbate progression, identification, and treatment of addiction, and increase the risk of relapse. It's essential to address family of origin issues appropriately in treatment. Again, the importance of getting that full history. The Bible tells us in Psalms 139, verses 13 to 16 in the Good News translation, "You created every part of me. You put me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because you're to be feared. All you do is strange and wonderful. I know it will be my heart. When my bones were being formed carefully, put together in my mother's womb, when I was growing there in secret, you knew that I was there. You saw me before I was born. The days allotted to me had all been recorded in your book before any of them ever began." God's committed to helping you. Cling to Him. Hang on to Him. Clients recovering from addiction and learning to avoid relapse can find comfort in knowing God has been committed to them, to you, to me, even before birth. God watched over each of us while we were in the womb. It just didn't happen accidentally, you might say. Might not have been expected, but there's a creation going on there. There's something that has been put together that's very special. And God made us in a way that's fortifying and guiding us through that process of birthing. We're all uniquely crafted. And the word in that scripture that I was referring to, fearfully, in the context, it actually means admiring our body's complexity. That's how special you are to God, and how special we should see each other, and believe that about ourselves, despite what we've been told, how we've been criticized, or the things that have happened. We are special. We've been uniquely made, put together. And science is backing up the Bible. Today, science, technology, it's all correlating with what the Bible has said thousands of years ago. If we do these certain things, this is going to happen. If we do those things, then these other things are going to happen. If we live this type of life, it's going to be better, things are going to work out. If we live that type of life, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. It all's come true. Every promise in the Bible has come true up to our day and time. There's thousands of them. No other religion in the world can make that claim. Only Judeo-Christian heritage can make that claim. Every promise in the Bible has come true up to our day and time. That's how unique we are, and how we can rely on what God is telling us in His Word. So this information is helpful for those going through recovery and relapse prevention. Intellectual ideas help us navigate our day-to-day affairs. And we'll get into some of those details of those signs and warnings next time, as I said earlier. So a biblical steps 8 and 9 might say this: continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. To put it differently, the step 8 and 9, we implement fresh approaches, values, and intentions to our life by regularly examining ourselves, not you, not somebody else, but yourself. Turn that finger inward by regularly examining ourselves and admitting our mistakes. It's not your fault, it was me. It might not have been my fault on something, but I may have made a poor decision that created this or caused that, or made things worse instead of better. It's me. So we want to examine me. We want to examine ourselves and admit where we've gone wrong, what we've done wrong, because if you don't admit it, you're going to repeat it. This entails prioritizing the well-being and health of others over our own personal interests, allowing us to progress towards God's healing and liberation. The Bible says, so be sure to admit to one another where you've deviated from God's design and request God's intervention. Ask Him, plead with Him. Lord, help me, please. Request God's intervention and treatment plan for each other so that you may be healed. To request that we make is a pleading. The Bible tells us thank God for everything, because everything, there's a purpose. Even when bad things happen, if we're putting the focus on God, we learn from the bad things, it makes us better, and we come out stronger and better. When the focus is on something else, those bad things are much worse, and we don't come out stronger and better. So the request of a person who lives in unity with God is powerful and effective. You can find that in James chapter 5, verse 16. I was reading from the Remedy Bible, which is a paraphrase Bible. Listen, think, feel, do. Think right, you'll feel better, and your behavior will be far more improved. And the likelihood of good things coming out of that are much higher. Well, we'll get into the signs and symptoms next time to watch out for in relapse prevention. I hope this was helpful for you today. May your troubles be more minor, blessings more, and happiness come through your door. We'll see you next time. God bless.